Is it inbounds and on topic if I ask a question or your opinion regarding Redeem Zoomer and his Reconquista?
Sure.
So it's kind of driving me crazy looking on Instagram and everything. He's posting all this stuff. He condemns and rebukes like other Presbyterians for leaving churches that are like super liberal or have female pastors or something. But at the same time, he's like actively trying to get people to leave Orthodoxy or, you know, whatever denomination to come and join Presbyterianism. So I'm just wondering, it just seems like a blatant contradiction regarding like the whole idea and belief of the universal church that they have. I'm curious your opinion on that.
Yeah, I would definitely say it's a contradiction. So look, I mean, when I was his age, I did the exact same thing. You want to know what I did when I was Redeem Zoomer's age? I mean, I'm assuming he's early 20s. I don't know his exact age, but you guys will think this is funny. Because I was reading Martin Luther at the time, right? I was Calvinist, Baptist, getting into Presbyterianism, but I also had this phase where I read like 5 Martin Luther books in a row. Well, I was inspired by Martin Luther's 95 Theses. So I bought a bunch of giant poster board. I forgot about this. I did this back in the day. And I wrote out like all these principles of Reformation theology that had been abandoned by Protestant churches. And I think I made maybe 5 or 10 of them. And I went around to all the different Protestant churches in my hometown and I taped them up on the front door of the churches. And I forgot about this, but one of the churches got scared. They called the police. I'm not joking. They called the police over. All it said was like, it's time to return to, you know, sola fide, sola gratia. It's like obvious Reformation stuff, but these people were like hyperventilating and having drama, mental breakdowns, and called the police over it wasn't 95. I don't think I could even come up with 95, because if you read Martin Luther's 95 Theses, a lot of them have to do with like, you know, obscure medieval Roman Catholic stuff like papal indulgences. And I was like, well, I'm not going to put that on there. So I know I put the solas on there, and I don't know what else. And maybe it was like Jay's 20 Theses or something like that. I think another thing I did too was one time I wrote out like a tract of Reformation principles. And I remember going to parking lots of Protestant churches and I printed out like 50 of them. And I would like put my little Reformation tract underneath the windshield of the cars at different Protestant churches. So I understand where Redeem Zoomer's at. And it's same principle with him and with Fuentes, okay? So I know what it's like to be that kind of a spurg about politics and theology when you're 24, whatever I don't know what they are, 24, 25, 22, 27, whatever, doesn't matter. I know what that's like. And what you're going to realize is like, it's a mistake to look to guys that are like 25 for your big question answers. And you're going to learn that as you get older. And I'm not hating on Zoomer or Nick Fuentes or these people. I'm just saying, like, it's really odd that so many people are looking to guys with little to no life experience. And I understand Fuentes has been persecuted. I understand Redeem Zoomer is a smart guy. He reads a lot. There's a lot more to life, though, than reading a lot and doing a lot of live streams and doing debates. Okay, there's a lot more to life.
Do you think that there's something to why like states and even religions have propped up young people and children? Do you think there's a kind of a spell that's kind of cast?
Yeah, actually, you know, Isaiah says it's a curse. He says women and children are your rulers, or the people that you look to, the people that are over you, right?
But it does capture people. Like, I'm just thinking about, you know, Pentecostals will get like, oh, he's a 12-year-old little pastor, gets up and starts
sucking and fucking and expect to know a real man to wife you, bitch, please.
Remember even There Will Be Blood? You've got this young
great
guy
example.
This community, totally insane. But then governments, they'll prop up.
Yeah, they're very useful. Yeah.
Institutions, yeah. So you have this in China. You had this obviously in other regimes as well. It's a weird kind of spell that it casts over people.
Yeah, and if you talk about it, oh, you're just jealous. You're jealous. No, I'm not jealous. I'm trying to. I mean, so anybody that I criticize, I'm jealous of. Like, I criticize all kinds of people. It doesn't follow because you make a criticism. Oh, you must just be jealous of them. I mean, I've been very cordial and kind at all times with Nick Fuentes. I've offered him discussions. I thought he wanted a discussion, and he took offense to that. Turned down another debate. I offered a geopolitical debate, turned that down as well. So, you can say I'm jealous or whatever. I don't really care. Like, I'm old enough that this stuff doesn't bother me anymore. Like, if you don't have discernment, like, I'm kind of at the point, and you'll get older, you'll be like this, where you're like, have fun with that. You're going to have to learn the hard way. So if you guys want to follow Roman Catholicism into oblivion, be my guest. That's your choice. If you're not going to listen to reasoning and discernment, then go your merry way. Learn the hard way.
That's what I told people today. I'm not even going to name the person, but there's somebody that we found out. We don't even know if they're Orthodox. They're 17 years old, going and speaking vile stuff against priests, pushing penal substitutionary atonement, calling out all the bishops. And there's Orthodox that follow and go, well, how do we respond to his argument? They have a good argument. I'm like, this is insane. Do you pull your Ouija board out?
Why are we letting 18-year-olds, 20-year-olds direct society? This is insane. The people have no discernment. None of you have any discernment.
This is Lord of the Flies, for crying out loud. Children running society, who thought that would be a
great analogy. Lord of the Flies is a perfect analogy, yeah.
No discernment. And I warn people, I'm like, don't do it. Don't talk to them. You don't pull a Ouija board out and being like, whoa, how do we respond to this?
Yeah, that's a great example. All right. Well, this demon has a really good argument. How do I respond? Well, I better get the Ouija board out and refute him right now.
It's so stupid. And I warn these people over and over again. And then what happens? They get confused. They become heretics and they leave the church. And I'm like, look, I'm not going to force you, but I warned you. And people they don't listen. Doesn't mean the priests are infallible or anything like that, but that's the prescribed way. You go to people who are more mature, who have the credentials, who are apostolos, who are sent, not to children who are 17 years old, who are anonymous, and we don't even know if they're Orthodox.
Yeah, it's like Redeemed Zoomer has 500,000? No, over 600,000 subscribers. Okay. And I don't have anything personally against him. I'm not angry at him or whatever. We've had cordial interactions since we had our sort of debate. But, just even from the vantage point of being a Protestant or even an evangelical, why would you be listening to a guy who's a seminary student in training, Zoomer? This is not a person competent and in a position to be giving you eternal spiritual advice about your soul and your destiny. Just why would you even think that somebody who's basically fresh out of being a teenager knows the world of geopolitics and knows the world of church and state and, but he's in seminary. Well, so what? Over 500,000 people, probably all very young people too, which again, you're going to understand this as you get older. Let me give you another example. One reason why scriptures talks about elders typically being elders is because they have lived life experience. And just because you are smart and can get things right in theology or geopolitics, it doesn't mean that you're actually attaining the virtues. You can be a very proficient speaker, debater, entertainer, commenter, and be virtueless. You can be full of vices and still be good at those things.
Evil genius.
Exactly. And we've seen this on the right over and over and over, where people continually follow and fall for people on the right who don't have any of the virtues. They don't even have a wife and children. And the reason why you want a wife and kids, and I'm not saying if you can't have kids that you fail. I'm speaking in generalities here. So people, please try midwits to understand generalities. Don't interject with your, but what about the exception to the rule? I'm generalities, okay? Generally speaking, you want your leader, for example, or person that you look to be married. Why? Well, because they're not gay.
Why are you gay? You are gay.
Likely. Yes, you can have a guy who's married and secretly is gay. I know that. But generally speaking, guys that are married probably aren't gay. And if they have kids, they're probably still even more or less gay, right? That means what? That they're not compromisable on a very basic level. And this is all the history of politics and geopolitics and espionage.
You know, you got to ask him there, do you have a dog? Do you remember the Norm
A dog?
Yeah. The logic professor from the University of Science. You don't remember that skit?
Mm-mm.
Okay, I'll run through it real quick. Everybody's going to like this, okay? So, met my neighbor there the other day. He says he's, gosh dang, a logic professor. What the heck is that? I ask. And he says, you know, it's syllogisms and deductions and inferences. Say, oh, well, yeah, that's interesting. Well, how's that work? So he says he's talking to his neighbor, the logic professor, and he says, do you have a dog? He says, yes, I do. Okay, then you probably have a yard and a house? Yes. I'm assuming you're married? And he's like, yes. He's like, how'd you figure that out? He's like, well, that's just simple logic there. I just, from a few kind of principles, I just deduced. And he says, oh, that's crazy. So he goes... Guy goes away and he runs into a guy at a bus stop. He says, dang thing, I just met this guy called the logic professor. Guy at the bus stop says, oh, what the heck is that? He's like, oh, it's something about syllogism, something. Well, here, let me give you an example. Do you own a dog? And the guy says, no. He says, oh, you must be one of those gays. Classic Norm Macdonald.
That is a classic Norm Macdonald joke. I mean, his style, yeah. I think I had heard that before, I just didn't remember it. But with leaders, you know, there's a reason why you have this principle in the church, for example, that people that are raised to the diaconate or the priesthood or the bishopric, like they have to have certain qualities that qualify them for this office. And there's certain things that can disqualify you for that office. And throughout all history until today, modernity and postmodernity, most countries and societies have also expected certain qualities for their leaders. Yes, the bar for leadership in the state is certainly lower than the bar for the priesthood, but you've got to have some kind of standards. And even with the lower standards for kings and rulers and state officials, it's like you still got to have some qualities. And one of those would be lived experience and lived wisdom, right? We have historical examples of child kings and child rulers, and usually that doesn't work out that well, right? I mean, we think about Joffrey in, you know, Game of Thrones or something as an example.
You're talking to a king!
He needs some milk!
But, I mean, the reason for elders actually being elderly is because they have lived experience. I know the camera went out. I forgot to plug it in. I always forget. I'll plug it in a second. The reason that you have the leaders that you look to be married with kids typically is so that you know that they're not at least immediately compromisable with gay stuff. Especially during the Cold War, this was all the rage because the Soviets were very proficient at compromising Western people if they had, you know, gay lovers and gay tendencies. They were very proficient at this. We've read multiple books. We've lectured through multiple history texts on how good the NKVD was at entrapping, for example, high-level people in the Navy, high-level people in NATO, et cetera, that were secretly gay. It works very well. And you just get a few snapshots, a little bit of a, you know, camera footage of a naval commander with a gay lover, and it's over. And so the Soviets were able to get quite a few secrets that way for many, many decades. So this is just an example of why you can't just let anybody who has a live streaming setup and a funny personality be your leader, even if they say a lot of good things. It's the same across the board with all these principles. Like, I'm not against the young guys that make the content. I probably would have been doing the same thing if I was there. In a way, I was doing the same stuff, right? Like I just told you guys. Father Deacon, did you hear my story about when I was a Protestant, when I was like Redeemed Zoomer's age? I made my own like 95 Theses and I put poster board up on all the churches.
No way, did you really?
I did, yeah.
Did you also make your own Jack trick?
No, well, they weren't chick tracks, but I made my own Reformation tracks that I would put under the windshields of people at church.
Well, you know, I had a bunch of stupid ideas too. You know, I thought I'd just do a psychedelic apologetic program at 16 years old. And I was like, this is really easy to convert people. 18, whatever, I was 16, 18 or something like that. I'm like, everybody believes in God. you just do this. So yeah, you have no experience or virtue. And I just thought, well, I'll change the world and this is how it'll work. And yeah, Lord forgive me.
You missed it, but what I said was I was reading a lot of Martin Luther when I was around, I don't know, 22, 23. And I was a Baptist Calvinist, kind of getting into Presbyterianism and reading a lot of Calvinist theology stuff. But I was also really impressed with Luther, right? Because he was a bombastic figure. And I remember reading the story of the 95 Theses, and I was like, why not do that now? Like the Protestant churches in America need to be reformed big time. So I bought a bunch of poster board, like, I don't know, 10 poster boards, and I wrote out, it wasn't 95 theses, but it was probably like 10 or 15 like Reformation theses.
You should have done 94 or 96.
Well, I couldn't come up with that many. Like, I probably only came up with like, I don't know, 10 or 20, but
let's just face it, it was your top 10 list that you're just still doing now, just in a different mode.
It might have been, but it was like, it's time for the church to return to sola fide and sola gratia and sola scriptura and all this kind of stuff. And I taped it on not every church, but a lot of the Protestant church doors. One of them called the cops because they got scared. I was like, I don't know why you call the cops over that, but it's kind of funny. J. Dyer walked so the redeemed Zoomer could run. Yeah, he's
also don't forget about classic movie of children leaders gone wrong is Children of the Corn, guys.
Village of the Damned, dude. Village of the Damned, right?
Village of the Damned, Children of Mordecai.
I don't know if I've ever actually finished Children of the Corn. I think Jamie and I've tried to watch it. I am a huge fan of John Carpenter's Village of the Damned. I know there's the old one's good too, but yeah, it's like, and a child shall lead them, right? Like the scripture says. Why don't we put a kid as the head of our, or what does Bill Paxton say in Alien? Why don't you put her in charge, man?
Why don't you put her in charge?
You know what I'm talking about in Aliens?
Yeah.
Yeah.
Well, we talked about this too since the 80s and 90s. Kids know best, right?
Exactly.
Kids know best, whether it's Goonies, Scooby-Doo.
Great point.
Like
Yes.
all these things, the dumb adults, E.T., all that stuff.
Mm-hmm.